Hello. Hello? Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. So today we would do anatomy, and we would take the anatomy of the cardiovascular system. The anatomy of the cardiovascular system. And in the anatomy of the cardiovascular system, we would discuss, we'll talk about the heart, the blood vessels, and blood itself. Throughout medical school, you will take lectures in cardiology from second year. In anatomy, you do cardiovascular system. Even in physiology, you do cardiovascular system. And then when you get to fourth year, you start doing internal medicine. You would also do cardiovascular system. So the cardiovascular system is one of the most important systems in the human body. And as a doctor, you know, you're always moving around with a stethoscope. When you become a doctor, you always have a stethoscope. And that is because you need to check the heart and, of course, the lungs also with your stethoscope. So this is a very important aspect of medicine. So today we would introduce what the cardiovascular system is about. Remember that I said in our physiology class, when we're talking about the organization of the body, we talked about cells coming together to form tissues and tissues coming together to form organs, and then organs form systems. Yes? So when we say cardiovascular system, it means that we are talking about a group of organs that perform a specific function. And that function is the transportation of blood, you know, and fluid around the body. So what is the circulatory system? So if you look at my screen here, you see cardiovascular system. The circulatory system, what is the function? What does it do? It transports fluid throughout the body. So the circulatory system transports fluid throughout the body. And this cardiovascular system, or this circulatory system, is made up of two other systems, which are the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system. The circulatory system is made up of cardiovascular system and lymphatic system. Now, the cardiovascular system is made up of the heart and the blood vessels. The cardiovascular system is made up of the heart and the blood vessels. So cardio is gotten from the word cardiac, which is heart. And then vascular simply means vessels. So cardiovascular system talks about the heart and the blood vessels. So here you will see that the heart and blood vessels make up the blood transportation network, which is called the cardiovascular system. So that is for blood transport. Later on, we'll talk about the transport of lymph, where we have the lymphatic system. So through this system, the heart pumps blood through the body's vast system of blood vessels. So there are numerous blood vessels in the body, which I'm going to show you today. Now, each of these blood vessels carry blood, but for blood to enter these blood vessels, it is the heart that pumps the blood into these blood vessels. And these blood vessels are not just carrying, the blood vessels carry two types of blood. We have what we call the oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood. So the oxygenated blood contains oxygen and nutrients, okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, and then we have the deoxygenated blood, which is used blood, which is void or lacks oxygen. Okay, so everything that you have that transports around your body, nutrients, electrolytes, water, all of them are carried through the blood. For you to be able to move any product around your body, even if it is a waste product, for you to move it around your body, you need the cardiovascular system and you need the blood to do that. When you eat your carbohydrate food and digestion takes place, that glucose needs to be transported to where it is needed, and it's the blood that does that. You know, at the end of metabolism, you get waste products, and these waste products need to be transported to where they will be excreted, and it's the cardiovascular system that does that. Your body needs oxygen, all your cells need oxygen, and it's the cardiovascular system that transports the oxygen to every cell of your body. But this cardiovascular system, as we said, is made up of the heart and the blood vessels. Then the heart and the blood vessels transport the blood with all the nutrients in it. But there are two circuits. How does this blood move? So the blood moves in circuits, and there are two circuits. These circuits are called the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit, or what you call the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. I'm going to show you using diagrams what each of these systems represents. But here you would find the vascular circuits. The heart consists of two muscular pumps. Now pay attention to this. There are two muscular pumps in the heart. The heart itself is a muscular organ. Yes, it's a muscular organ. But in that heart, there are two muscular pumps that pumps blood out into the vessels. So what are these two muscular pumps? So the heart consists of two muscular pumps that, although adjacently located, act in series, dividing the circulation into two components, the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation, or what you call the pulmonary circuit or the systemic circuit. Now, what are these two pumps that pumps blood into these two circuits? Now, we have what we call the right ventricle. You know, the heart has four chambers. So we have the right atrium and the right ventricle, the left atrium and the left ventricle, which I will show you in diagrams very soon. So the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and ventricle. But which of these chambers act as a pump? Because here we said that the heart consists of two muscular pumps. So out of these four chambers, which ones are acting as a pump to push blood out into the vessels? So we have the right ventricle is the first pump. The right ventricle is the first pump. It propels or pushes deoxygenated blood or blood with low oxygen that is coming from the systemic circulation. Now I'm going to explain what systemic circulation means, okay? So the first pump is the right ventricle. It propels low oxygen blood returning from the systemic circulation into the lungs. So when blood, don't forget this, I'm going to ask you later, when blood leaves the right ventricle, where is the blood going to? It is going to the lungs. Remember, we said that this blood that is leaving the right ventricle is low in oxygen, or what we call deoxygenated blood. It is blood that has been used by all your cells and all your tissues. So the blood returns to the heart. When the blood gets to the heart, it enters the right atrium and then goes to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it is pumped into the lungs. So the first pump is the right ventricle. Now, when the blood leaves the right ventricle, it enters into what we call the lungs. But for it to get to the lung, it passes through the pulmonary arteries. Now, that blood contains carbon dioxide because we said it is deoxygenated, so it doesn't contain oxygen. Carbon dioxide is exchanged for oxygen in the capillaries of the lungs. Because in the lungs, that is where you have oxygen. So when this blood leaves the right ventricle and goes to the lungs, there is exchange of oxygen with carbon dioxide. So the oxygen you breathe in enters into the blood, while the carbon dioxide in the blood enters into the lungs where it is exhaled. You breathe it out, okay? Good. Now, so that is the first pump, which is the right ventricle. Now, here you will find that the blood, after getting oxygen in the lungs, that blood needs to come back to the heart, and it enters the heart through the pulmonary vein, and it goes to the left atrium of the heart. Now, from the right ventricle, let me take this down. So you'll find here, it goes to the left atrium. Now, this circuit from the right ventricle through the lungs to the left atrium is called the pulmonary circulation. So I'm going to show you a diagram, another diagram to explain that pulmonary circulation. So here I have this two circuits, okay? The heart pumps blood in two circuits. And we said the first circuit is called the pulmonary circuit, while the second circuit is called the systemic circuit. So the pulmonary circuit is blood is leaving the right ventricle to the lungs and back to the left atrium. I'm going to use a diagram to explain that. Then we'll have the systemic circuit. But before I explain the systemic circuit, let me see if I can show you a diagram that explains the, okay, maybe I can use this diagram. Or let me see if I can find a better diagram. Okay, let me use this one. I think I have another diagram. Let me use a better diagram. I have another diagram. Let me use another one. Maybe that will be easier for you. So look at this diagram here. Good. Can you see this diagram?
Yes, sir.
Now, here you will see the pulmonary circulation or the pulmonary circuit. So remember, we said that the first muscle in the heart that pumps blood out is this right ventricle here, right ventricle. Now, the blood in this right ventricle, how did it get to the right ventricle? I'm going to explain that under systemic circulation because the blood came from here, yeah? And it is in blue color, showing that it does not contain oxygen. So that blood entered the right atrium. From the right atrium, it entered the right ventricle. But this right ventricle is the first muscle that will pump the blood out of the heart. This is the heart here. So now, from my right ventricle, the blood is pumped into the pulmonary arteries. So this is pulmonary artery. Later, I will tell you that an artery is any blood vessel that takes blood away from the heart. So now blood is leaving the right ventricle, going to the lungs. So it is carried by the pulmonary artery. But the chamber of the heart that pumps that blood is this right ventricle. So the blood leaves the right ventricle, enters pulmonary artery, and this blood, we said, does not contain oxygen. That's why it is blue in color. In the lungs, oxygen will be added to the blood. Then it becomes oxygenated. So now it is red in color. So this oxygenated blood has to come back to the heart. But for it to come back to the heart, it will be carried by the pulmonary veins. By the pulmonary vein. Now, where will the blood enter? It will enter the left atrium. From the left atrium, the blood now goes to the left ventricle. So this left ventricle is the second pump. This left ventricle will now pump this blood from the heart into what we call the systemic arteries, starting from the aorta, which is the largest artery. I'm going to show you later what the aorta is. So we have this blood will enter the systemic arteries. And from this systemic artery, the blood is carried to every organ of your body. Every organ of your body receives blood from these systemic arteries. Now, when the blood gets to the organ, each of your organs, there is what we call the capillaries, where there is exchange of the oxygen in the blood and nutrients in the blood with the capillaries. So these capillaries are found in the tissues, each of the tissues. Now, the movement of blood from this left ventricle down to all your organs, and then the oxygen is used up by your organs or by your tissues, and the blood now becomes deoxygenated again without nutrients and without oxygen because the organs use up all the oxygen. Now, the blood now goes back to the right atrium. So that is what we call the systemic circulation. So systemic circulation is the movement of blood from the left ventricle down to the right atrium, systemic circulation. While pulmonary circulation is the movement of blood from the right ventricle down to the left atrium. I repeat, systemic circulation is the movement of blood from the left ventricle to all your organs and all your cells and all your tissues, and then the blood comes back to the right atrium here. That is systemic circulation. While pulmonary circulation is the movement of the blood from the right ventricle to your lungs and then back to your left atrium. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Good. So the two circuits that make up the circulatory system are the pulmonary circuit or the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. Now the pulmonary circulation is the shorter circuit. Why? It is shorter circuit because the blood only leaves the right ventricle and goes to the lungs and back to the left atrium. So that is short. But the systemic circulation, the blood leaves the left ventricle, goes to all other organs, not to the lungs this time, to all other organs of your body, and then comes back to the right atrium. So the systemic circulation is longer than the pulmonary circulation. But what I wanted you to know, why I brought you to this diagram, is for you to know that the circulatory system is made up of the heart and the blood vessels. And then this circulatory system is made up of actually cardiovascular system and lymphatic system, while the cardiovascular system is made up of the heart and the blood vessels. Now, the heart, as we will discuss very soon, has 4 chambers, but out of these 4 chambers, 2 of them act as muscular pumps. And the 2 that act as muscular pumps are the right ventricle and the left ventricle because they pump blood out of the heart. So blood leaves the heart from these 2 chambers, the right ventricle and the left ventricle. So that is why we call them the pumps. While blood enters the heart through the right atrium and the left atrium. So they just receive blood. So if you are asking an exam, what are the chambers of the heart, or what are the receiving chambers of the heart? They are the atrium, the right atrium and the left atrium. They receive blood. Then if you are asked what are the chambers of the heart that pumps blood out of the heart, they are the right ventricle and the left ventricle. Then these 2 muscular pumps, right ventricle and left ventricle, pump blood into 2 different circuits. The right ventricle pumps blood into the pulmonary circuit. because from the right ventricle, the blood enters the pulmonary artery and goes to the lungs, and then the blood comes back to the left atrium. That is the pulmonary circulation. While the left ventricle, which is the second pump, pumps blood into the systemic arteries, to every tissue and organ of your body, and then the blood comes back to the right atrium. So that's what I want you to know, basically. So at this point, is there any question yet?
No, sir. No question.
No question. Okay. So from this diagram, you see two different colors, the blue and the red. What does the blue color stand for?
And deoxygenated blood.
Deoxygenated
blood stands for oxygenated blood.
Okay. So in which chambers of the heart will you find deoxygenated blood?
In the right atrium and the left atrium and ventricle.
So the right atrium and the right ventricle.
The right ventricle.
So the right side of the heart contains deoxygenated blood. And why is this blood deoxygenated?
Why is because the left ventricle pumps the blood through the systemic arteries, and so the capillaries use the oxygenated blood. Then it becomes deoxygenated. Then it goes to the right atrium.
Okay, so the tissues use the tissues and the cells. They use the oxygen and the nutrients in the blood. Yeah, and then they produce. Now, in every tissue, there is metabolic process going on, where at the end of this metabolic process, waste products are formed. Yes. So these waste products are exchanged with oxygen in the capillaries. So these capillaries are found in the tissues. For example, in my kidney, you will find capillaries there. In my lungs, you will find capillaries. In my spleen, you will find capillaries. In my liver, you will find almost all organs of my body contain tissues that have capillaries. So that is where exchange of nutrients and oxygen takes place. So the blood is deoxygenated because the tissues or the organs have used up the nutrients in the blood and have deposited the waste products of metabolism into the blood. So it is deoxygenated. And then when it gets to the lungs, it takes oxygen and then it comes back to the heart and it is circulated again. So that we have that circuit. Good. So what you need to know is that at this point, we have two circuits, pulmonary and systemic. So tell me, what is the pulmonary circulation? How would you explain pulmonary circulation? Where does it start from and where does it end?
The pulmonary circulation starts from the right ventricle, and then it goes through the pulmonary arteries and to the lungs, and then it ends in the left atrium.
In the where?
In the left atrium.
In the left atrium, good. Now, then tell me about the systemic circulation.
And the systemic circulation is from the ventricle to the, then pass through the systemic arteries, then to the systemic capillaries, then we end in the right atrium.
The right atrium, good. So which of these two circuits contain oxygenated blood? Which of them contain oxygenated blood?
The systemic.
No, both of them contain oxygenated
blood. Both of them oxygenated blood.
Yeah, because in the pulmonary circulation, from this place, pulmonary vein into the left, this is oxygenated blood, isn't it? Why? For the systemic circulation, this part of systemic circulation carry deoxygenated blood. So it means both pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation contain oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, yes?
Okay.
Now, which of these two circuits is longer?
The systemic.
The systemic is longer because it has to travel to all other organs of your body. But for pulmonary circulation, the blood just leaves the heart to the lungs and back to the heart. But for systemic circulation, the blood leaves the heart and goes to all other organs before returning back to the heart. Good. That's good. So what have we said so far? We have said that there are two vascular circuits. This was where we stopped. So if you look here, we said the circuit from the right ventricle through the lungs to the left atrium is the pulmonary circulation. The left ventricle propels the oxygen-rich blood returned to the heart from the pulmonary circulation through the systemic arteries. And the largest of the systemic arteries is the aorta and its branches, exchanging oxygen and nutrients for carbon dioxide in the body's capillaries. Low oxygen blood returns to the heart, the right atrium, via the systemic veins, which is what I showed you in that diagram.
Awesome.
Then this circuit from left ventricle to right atrium is a systemic circulation. So now we are going to discuss each of the blood vessels and their function, what they do, and the types of the blood vessels that we have. So here you will see blood vessels, because we said that the cardiovascular system is made up of the heart and the blood vessels. Now, the blood vessels, there are three types of blood vessels, as you would already know from maybe secondary school biology. And these three blood vessels are the arteries, veins, and the capillaries. Now, the arteries carry blood at high pressure. Remember, the arteries carry blood at high pressure. Now, why do the arteries carry blood at high pressure? Because you must know that arteries have one function, and their function is to take blood out of the heart. So they carry blood away from the heart. That is their function. And because they are carrying blood away from the heart, we say that blood leaves the heart from what chambers?
And blood leaves the heart from the right and the left ventricle and the left
right ventricle and left ventricle.
Right and the left ventricle, yes. Both the two ventricles.
Yeah, so those are the two pumps, yes? Now, so blood leaves the heart through the right ventricle and the left ventricle. They are the pumps. Because they are pumped, when they contract, they pump blood at high pressure. So they are pushing the blood out of the heart. And as the blood is leaving those two pumps, the right ventricle and the left ventricle, the blood is entering vessels. Because we said that for blood to leave the heart, it must be carried by arteries. So the function of arteries is that arteries carry blood away from the heart. Okay? So it means that when blood leaves the right ventricle and the left ventricle, the blood is carried by arteries. So arteries carry blood at high pressure because the blood just left the heart, and the heart pumps the blood with force, with pressure, and that blood is entering the blood vessels, which are the... Now, so what are the blood vessels? Now, pay attention. What are the two arteries that carry blood out of the heart? What are the two arteries that carry blood out of the heart?
The pulmonary artery and the systemic artery.
Okay, the pulmonary artery and the systemic artery. But systemic artery, now pay attention. The right word you should use is the aorta, okay? The largest artery in the heart, or the largest artery in the body, is called the aorta. And that is the artery that takes blood directly from the left ventricle. Okay? So the two main blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart are the pulmonary artery and the aorta. You can write that down somewhere in your notebook. The two main arteries that carry blood away from the heart are the pulmonary artery and the aorta. The aorta. Pulmonary artery and the aorta. Now, these arteries are, all arteries are supposed to carry oxygenated blood. Now I'm giving you properties of arteries. All arteries carry oxygenated blood except one artery. All arteries carry oxygenated blood except one artery. Now, what is the name of that one artery? It is
pulmonary artery.
The pulmonary artery, because the pulmonary artery is from the right ventricle going to the lungs. So the blood does not contain oxygen at that time, yes? The blood is still going to the lungs to receive oxygen. So from this previous diagram, you will see that this pulmonary artery is still blue in color because the blood is leaving the right ventricle to the lung. So it is deoxygenated. So that is the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood. All other arteries, as you will see later, all other arteries carry oxygenated blood. So what have I said about arteries? Number one, arteries carry blood away from the heart. Number two, arteries carry blood at high pressure. High pressure. Number three, all arteries carry oxygenated blood, except the pulmonary artery. Okay? Number four, the fourth thing you need to know about arteries is that arteries have very thick walls. Thick walls. The walls of arteries are very thick. You will see it here, thick-walled arteries. So why are the walls of the arteries thick? The walls of the arteries are thick because they need to carry blood at high pressure. So they need a thick wall to be able to withstand the high pressure with which blood flows through them. So arteries have thick walls because they carry blood at high pressure. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Good. Now, these arteries, or the largest artery in the body, which is the fifth point you need to know about arteries, the largest artery in the body is called the aorta. The largest artery in the body is called the aorta. Now, this aorta divides into other smaller arteries. Now, the smallest arteries are called arterioles. Arterioles, you'll find it here, arterioles. The final distributing vessels, arterioles. So these are the smallest artery that actually go to the capillaries. So the blood leaves the heart. I'm going to show you this diagram. The blood leaves the left ventricle, yeah, through the aorta. The aorta is the largest artery. So the blood leaves the left ventricle through the aorta, and then the aorta splits to systemic arteries. And then the systemic arteries split further to smaller arteries, which we call arterioles. So this part of this capillary you find here is called arterioles because they're the smallest arteries. Arterioles, that's what they are called. Good. Then, let's go back. Now, once these arterioles get to capillaries, they form what we call capillary beds, where there is exchange of oxygen, nutrients, waste products, and other substances with the extracellular fluid. So these arterioles, when they come together with what we call the venules, you'll see later we're talking about veins, venules, they form capillary beds. So these capillary beds is where exchange of nutrients and oxygen and waste products take place in the capillaries. So let's quickly talk about, summarize arteries. So arteries are blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart, yes. Secondly, the arteries carry blood at high pressure because the blood is leaving the heart, it's pumped into the arteries. fresh blood. Number 3, the arteries carry oxygenated blood. All arteries carry oxygenated blood except the pulmonary artery. Number 4, the walls of the arteries are thicker than the walls of the veins. They have very thick walls because they carry blood at high pressure. Number 5, the largest artery that carries blood from the heart is the aorta. Number 6, when arteries divide, they form smaller ones that are called arteries. Okay, good. Now, that is everything you need to know about the artery. Later, we would look at the histology of the arteries to see the real structure of what make up the arteries. Now, let's talk about the veins. Now, when blood leaves the capillary bed, or let me put it this way. The veins are blood vessels. I forgot something. Arteries are pink in color. So add that to arteries. They are pink in color. You know, they carry bright red blood. So when you see them, they are almost pink in color. Now, let's go to veins. Veins are blood vessels that return blood to the heart. That's the first thing about veins. They are blood vessels that return blood to the heart. So it means they are taking blood from all other tissues and taking it back into the heart. We said arteries take blood from the heart and supply to all other organs of your body. Yes. While veins take blood from all other organs and return the blood into the heart. Now, the veins do not have very thick walls. And the reason they don't have very thick walls is because the blood flowing in them is flowing at a low pressure. So veins carry blood at low pressure, unlike arteries, okay? Then, all veins, fourth thing, all veins carry deoxygenated blood, blood without oxygen and nutrients, used blood. So all veins carry deoxygenated blood except one vein. What is the name of that vein?
Is the system vein.
Listen again. All veins carry
deoxygenated. Is the pulmonary vein that carries oxygenated blood.
Good. So all veins carry deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary vein. Why? Because the pulmonary vein is coming from the lungs.
The lungs, yeah.
Yeah, after oxygen has been added to the blood. So the pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood, and then the blood now comes into the heart. Now, so that's the fifth thing. All veins carry deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary vein that carries oxygenated blood. Now, the largest vein, the sixth thing, the largest veins in the human body is called vena cavae. Vena cavae. There are two of them. We have the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. So the superior vena cava is taking blood from all organs above the heart. Superior vena cava. All organs above the heart, the superior vena cava takes blood from these organs and returns the blood to the heart, while all organs in the below the heart take the largest vein. All the veins come together to join the inferior vena cava, and the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava meet to form the vena cavae. So in this diagram, look at this diagram by the right, this one here.
Yes, sir.
So you will see this is my head and my brain. This is my upper limb. Blood coming from my head and my brain is carried by veins. Blood coming from my upper limb is carried by veins. So all these veins join together to form the superior vena cava, this one, which is the largest vein, superior vena cava. And then it's entering the heart. Then from the lower part of my body, you know, my kidney, my lower limbs, my liver, my spleen, all the veins come together and they join this large vein, which is called the inferior vena cava, taking blood into the heart. So at the point where the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava meet, we have what we call the vena cava. So the vena cava is the largest blood vein, the largest veins in the body are called the vena cava. The ones coming from the upper part of the body is called the superior vena cava, and the one coming from the lower part of the body is called the inferior vena cava. So that is what you need to know about the veins. But what kind of blood do the superior and the inferior vena cava carry? Oxygenated or deoxygenated?
Deoxygenated.
Deoxygenated blood. Yeah, deoxygenated blood. So the largest veins are the vena cava, and they carry deoxygenated blood. Now, when veins divide, they form smaller ones, which are called venules. Now, at the in the capillary bed, you will find capillaries, you will find venules at one end, and you will find arteries at the other end. So here, if you look at this capillary here, you will find that this is an artery. Yes, this artery divides into smaller ones, which are the arteries. And then this is the vein. This large vein was formed by a combination of smaller veins. So these smaller veins are the venules. So these venules join together to form the large vein. Now we said arteries divide to form arteries, yes, while smaller veins join to form smaller venules. These are venules. These smaller ones here are called venules. They join to form the big vein. And then the largest of these big veins, the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. Okay, good. Now, before we look at the histology of the vessels, of the blood vessels, I want us to take examples of different kind of blood vessels, arteries and veins. And now we're going to use this diagram. You may need to write, because I'm going to be saying some things that you will need to write down. I'm going to be mentioning some names that you might need to write down. Now, let's look at how the whole circulation, blood circulation works. We would start from, let's start from here. At this point, this is the right atrium, yes? And this is the right ventricle. This is the left atrium, and this is the left, left atrium and the left ventricle. Left ventricle. Now, used blood, the blue part, deoxygenated blood, is coming from different parts of the body, and it joins the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava, and the blood enters the right atrium. From the right atrium, there is a valve here, which is called the tricuspid valve. We'll talk about this valve later when we are talking about the structure of the heart, okay? So this valve opens and the blood enters the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the blood is carried by an artery out of the heart, yes? And that artery is called the pulmonary artery, which is the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood. The blood gets to the lungs and it is oxygenated. And then the pulmonary vein returns that blood into the left atrium. From the left atrium, there is a valve here called the bicuspid valve. Bicuspid valve or mitral valve. That valve opens and the blood enters the left ventricle. Now from the left ventricle, we need to pump the blood. This oxygenated blood needs to go to all tissues and organs because all the organs and the tissues, they need the oxygen in that blood. So the blood enters the aorta. Remember I said the largest artery that carries blood from the heart is called the aorta. So this is the aorta here, aorta. Now this aorta splits into two. One part goes to the upper part of the body. Another part comes to the lower part of the body. Now the part that comes to the lower part of the body is called the abdominal aorta. So this aorta is going to supply all organs that are below the heart. This other part that goes up is called the thoracic aorta. So because that is the main aorta, so it splits into the smaller one, which we call the abdominal aorta. So this large aorta that is going up is going to divide to form arteries that will supply different parts of the body. Yes? But now you need to write down, I'm going to mention the names of some arteries now. Yeah? Now, the artery that will carry blood to the upper limb. So this is your upper limb, your hand. Yes? That's your upper limb. The artery that will carry blood to this upper limb is called the brachial artery. Brachial artery. Let me write it in the chat for you. Brachial artery. Brachial artery. So that is the artery that supplies blood to your upper limb. Okay, don't forget that.
Yes, sir.
Brachial artery.
Yeah.
Good. Then the artery that will take blood to your head and your brain is called the carotid artery. Carotid artery. Carotid artery. Let me write it down here. Carotid artery. So this one is going to your brain, your head and brain, carotid artery. Why the brachial artery is going to your upper limb. Now, each of these arteries later will split to form other branches, which we will discuss later, okay? Because later you will find that carotid artery has what we call the common carotid artery, and then we'll have the internal carotid and the external carotid artery. And each of these internal carotid artery will now form different branches again, you know, and then you have the middle cerebral artery, you have ophthalmic arteries and all of that, okay? But now, look, mentioning just the major arteries, okay? So upper limb, the brachial artery, and then the head and the brain is the carotid artery. So this one you see ascending arteries here, right? When it gets to the brain, it becomes the carotid artery. Then this abdominal aorta comes down. Now it needs to go supply these different organs, okay? It needs to supply different organs. Now you have the artery that goes to your liver, okay? So this is your liver here. The artery that goes to your liver, anyway, here they put trunk here, yeah? So we'll have some thoracic, some small artery that goes to supply different parts of the chest cavity. We'll talk about them later. Now, but the major organs, like the liver, will have the hepatic artery. Hepatic artery. So if they ask you which artery takes blood to the liver, it is called the hepatic artery. Hepatic artery. And this hepatic artery is coming from this abdominal aorta, or coming from the aorta, right? So it comes to supply oxygen, you know, and nutrients to this liver. Then your digestive system. So here, let's call this your digestive system or your guts. Yeah, G-U-T, guts. Now, the artery that comes here to supply this your digestive system is called the mesenteric artery. Mesenteric artery. Mesenteric artery. Mesenteric artery will come and supply, you know, your guts. But there are other branches, okay? For example, you have the gastric that goes to the stomach. You have the splenic artery that goes to the spleen, like that. And then you have the mesenteric, the branch of it that goes to the small intestines, like that, okay? So, but we'll look at the smaller branches later. So here we're going to take the mesenteric artery. Then there is a connection between the digestive system and the liver. What happens here? When you eat food and digestion takes place, at the end of digestion, you get glucose, amino acid, and fatty acids. Now, these food products in the digestive system, they need to be carried to the liver because the liver needs to metabolize each of these products, okay? So the metabolism of glucose, amino acid, and fatty acid, you know, they occur in the liver. So that is why blood leaves your digestive system, let's say from your duodenum, where the digestion ends, and the blood is carried to the liver. But this time around, the artery, or not an artery, the blood vessel that does that is called the hepatic portal vein. So you will notice that the liver receives two blood supplies. Pay attention, two blood supply. One from the hepatic artery, bringing oxygenated blood, and then the other one from the hepatic portal vein, bringing nutrients, digested food products to the liver. So don't forget that the liver receives two blood supply. All other organs receive just one blood supply. For example, your kidney, only the renal artery takes blood to your kidney. But for your liver, two blood vessels go there. One, hepatic artery, another one, hepatic portal vein. Then let's come back to the kidneys now. These are the kidneys. So the kidneys receive blood from the renal through the renal arteries. So you see that this aorta that came here will also form renal artery. So blood supply to the kidney is through the renal arteries. Then the lower part of your body, your lower limbs, yes, your lower limbs, your hip joints and all your lower limbs receive blood. This one that is called descending arteries here will later form what is called, so your pelvis and your lower limb will later form arteries. These descending arteries will later split into what we call the common iliac artery. Common iliac artery. Common iliac artery, which will supply blood to your pelvic region and your lower limb. So that common iliac artery will split also later to form other type of arteries, from where you will now have your femoral artery that goes to supply your femur or your lap. And then from there you have other arteries, which I will show you later. So that aorta that left the heart, this aorta that left the heart, split to different arteries to supply different organs in your body. And the ones I said you should remember, you must never forget, is that the one that goes to the brain is called the carotid artery. Yes, the one that goes to your upper limb is called the brachial artery. The one that goes to your trunk, you have some internal thoracic arteries. And then the one that goes to your liver is called a hepatic artery. The one that goes to your guts or your stomach, you have the gastric artery or the mesenteric artery, which are branches. You have the mesenteric artery. And then specifically to the stomach, you have the gastric artery. To the spleen, you have the splenic artery. To the kidney, you have the renal artery. Yeah.
Sir,
yeah.
You said the stomach is what again?
Gastric.
Okay.
Gastric artery. The spleen, you have the splenic artery. The liver, you have the hepatic artery. The lower limbs, the lower limbs, you have your common iliac artery. And then here in this place also, you can find your ovaries, ovaries and testes. So the one that goes to the ovary is called the ovarian artery. The one that goes to the testes is called the testicular artery. So ovaries, ovarian artery, testes, testicular artery. The one that goes to your femur is called the femoral artery. But we'll talk about all of those other branches later. So that is the arterial part of the blood. But remember I mentioned that the liver receives two blood supplies, one from the hepatic artery and another one from the hepatic portal vein. From this picture, you will find that the hepatic portal vein is blue in color. So it means that the blood is deoxygenated blood, but it contains nutrients. Why? Because it's coming from the digestive system. After digestion, your glucose, amino acid, and fatty acid are transported through the hepatic portal vein into the liver for further metabolism. Now, let's look at the other side. Now, all of these organs that we just mentioned, they will use the blood. Once they use the blood becomes deoxygenated blood without nutrients, yes? And without oxygen. So now this blood needs to pass through these capillaries now. It must go back to the heart. So now the blood the blood vessel that will take the blood from each of these organs back to the heart, we said it must be a vein because veins return blood to the heart. So the veins coming from the lower limb are the iliac veins or the common iliac veins. Iliac veins. If the ovary, it will be the ovarian vein. If it's the testis, it will be the testicular vein. If it is the femur, it will be the femoral vein.
Just where arteries used to be, just put vein.
Yeah, where the arteries used to be, now it will be vein. But when you get to, I'm going to show you, for the brain, you don't have carotid veins. What you have is jugular vein. So instead of carotid vein, you have jugular vein. So you have carotid artery and jugular vein. Okay. Then for the kidneys, we have the renal veins, taking the blood from the kidney, renal vein. And then from the liver, we have the hepatic vein. So remember, hepatic portal vein does not take blood away from the liver. We said that veins take blood from the organs back to the heart, yes? But hepatic portal vein does not take blood from the liver. It takes blood from the digestive system and supplies it to the liver. That's why I said the liver has two blood supplies. But the blood that leaves the liver is the hepatic vein, okay? Without oxygen and without nutrients, hepatic vein. Then we have some thoracic veins. And then all of these veins coming from the lower part of the body will all join and become the inferior vena cava, which is the largest vein coming from the lower part of the body. Then from the upper part of the body, we have the jugular vein, this time around, jugular vein. And then from the upper limb, we'll have some veins that we'll call the subclavian veins.
From upper limb.
Yeah, from the upper limb. Upper limb, the shoulder and the upper limbs, the blood coming from there.
Subclavian.
Yeah. Subclavian veins. So we'll look at each of these veins and the arteries later. Okay, so we'll have the subclavian vein. We also have what we call the axillary vein coming from the axilla or the armpit. Okay, but all of them, we'll look at them differently later, each of them. Now, the veins from the upper limb and the veins from the head and the brain will join to form the large vein, which is the superior vena cava, which is the superior vena cava. So remember that we said that the artery from the upper limb is called the brachial artery. The vein is also called the brachial vein, but some other branches from that vein are the axillary vein, the subclavian vein, which we will look at later, okay? Good. Now, the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava will meet and the blood enters the right atrium, where it now enters the pulmonary circulation. So, everything I explained here on the right side, blood coming to the artery, the brain and the upper limb, going to the kidney, the liver, the digestive system, the lower limb, all of these is systemic circulation on the right side. And that was why we said that systemic circulation takes a longer time than pulmonary circulation. Then all of these veins returning blood to the heart until the blood gets to this right atrium is systemic circulation. Systemic circulation is longer than pulmonary circulation. Yeah? Good. So, summary of the circulatory system. I'll do it in 3 minutes. Circulatory system has the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system. The cardiovascular system is made up of the heart and the blood vessels, while the lymphatic system is made up of limbs and the lymphatic vessels. Now, the cardiovascular system, we said, has heart and the vessels. The vessels are 3 main types: the arteries, the veins, and the capillaries. The heart has 2 main pumps, 4 chambers: right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricles. But the 2 main pumps are right ventricle and the left ventricle. So they pump blood out of the heart, while the receiving chambers of the heart are the atrium, right atrium, and the left atrium. They receive blood. While the right ventricle and the left ventricle pump blood out of the heart. When blood leaves this right ventricle and this left ventricle, the blood enters into blood vessels that carry the blood out of the heart. And these blood vessels are called arteries, yes? And the 2 main arteries that take blood from the heart are the pulmonary artery and the aorta. The pulmonary artery takes blood from the right part of the heart, from the right ventricle, while the aorta takes blood from the left ventricle, okay? Now, we said that arteries are blood vessels that take blood away from the heart. Yes? And they carry oxygenated blood. They have thick walls because they carry blood at high pressure. Yeah? All arteries carry oxygenated blood except the pulmonary artery. Yeah? The arteries are pink in color. Good. Now, the largest artery in the body is called the aorta. And when arteries divide, they form arteries, okay? Smaller arteries called arteries. Then we said the veins return blood to the heart. They carry deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary vein. And the veins do not have thick walls. And the reason they don't have thick walls is because they carry blood at low pressure, okay? And so we have smaller veins that are called venules. And the largest veins in the body are called the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. And then we said that the pulmonary blood transport in two circuits, the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit. The pulmonary circuit begins from where does it start from? The right ventricle, yes, and ends in the left atrium. The pulmonary circuit starts from the right ventricle and ends in the left atrium, while the systemic circuit starts from the left atrium and ends in the right, start from the left ventricle and ends in the right atrium, okay? And both of them have both oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, okay? Now, the largest artery, when it leaves the heart, it splits into the abdominal aorta, and then we'll have the ascending aorta going to the upper part, and then we'll have the abdominal aorta coming to the lower part. The ascending aorta now divides to form the ascending arteries. The one that go to the brain and the head are called the carotid arteries. The one that go to the upper limb is called the brachial arteries. Then the abdominal aorta comes down, forms other arteries. The one that goes to the liver is called the hepatic artery. The one that goes to the digestive system is called the mesenteric artery. And the one that goes to the kidney is called the renal artery. The one that goes to the pelvis and the lower limb is called the iliac or the common iliac artery. The one that goes to the ovaries and the testes and the ovarian and the testicular arteries. Then from the digestive system, we have a vein called the hepatic portal vein that takes digested food from the small intestine to the liver for further metabolism, okay? Yeah, and then the same thing happens for the veins. They take blood from all these organs and return the blood back into the heart. In the next class, on Saturday, I'm going to ask you to give me the names of the major arteries and the major veins that supply and take blood away from each of the organs. And I will ask you to explain everything that we discussed today. Do you have any question?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand this?
Yeah, I just wanted to like what are the next class? Can you like send me the diagram so I can just read about the diagram?
Okay, what I want us to do in next class is to discuss the histology of each of these vessels. So we'll look at the structure of an artery, we'll look at the histology of the artery and the histology of the veins also and the capillaries.
I'll go and read the structure.
Sorry?
The drawings. I'll go and read them. That's what I want to do.
Do you have anatomy atlas? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. If you have anatomy,
I don't have the atlas. I don't have the atlas, but I have the book.
You have the book, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you have the book, you could. I don't know what textbook you have. Is it the other textbook I gave to you?
Yes, someone gave to me. Human Anatomy, Volume 3.
The Volume 3, yes? You finished Volume 1 and Volume 2 already?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay. Sir. Okay. In Volume 3, what's in the first topic there? Do you know?
Let me check.
Yeah, check.
We're supposed to do this. This is what we even start. We're supposed to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cardiovascular system, yes?
Yes, next semester on second.
Okay, good. So you can, in the next one, I'm going to be talking about the histology of the vessels, where we would look at the artery and this diagram. We're going to discuss this diagram and say the structure of the artery, what make up the the arteries. And then we'll discuss also what is collateral circulation, and we'll look at blood supply to every organ of the body. Yeah, so we'll still take the artery and the vein, but this time around, we'll discuss the artery, both the histology of the artery and the function of each artery. And all the name that was mentioning before, the different type of arteries, we'll look at each of these arteries, where they are coming from, when they divide, what do they form? So we'll look at all of that, plus blood capillaries. Yeah. Good. And then when we're done with that, in the next class, we'll look at the lymphoid system. So I think in your textbook, you will find some pictures, but I think they're in black and white, yes?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just try and study the structure or the histology of the vessels. I don't know if you have this diagram in your textbook, but I think you'll find it. If you don't have it, I can maybe snap this one and send to you.
Taking a picture.
You took a picture already?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, good. So I will explain this in the next class. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, bye-bye.